Greetings, I am Matt from the Loom of Time.
I'm Shieldsy from Avocadus.
Welcome to the Tomb of Lime podcast. This is episode 15 on our epic saga of, the whole thing, okay? But right now we're up to track 5 of Grand Falls Caress, which is called The Age of Expansionism. Right, the topic of discussion. And, sometimes I feel like I could let you in on these things beforehand, but...
No, just shove me straight into it head first.
Yep, all right, will do. Today I want to talk about aesthetics.
Oh, yeah.
So I would say that if there's a hierarchy of things that people will claim that they care about when it comes to music, the way things look and the aesthetics of, i.e., like the way the band dresses and looks, or even the album artwork or merch or whatever it might be, is not at the top, all right? For any self-respecting music fan, you'd probably think that something like songwriting is at the top, and then maybe under there it might be production value, how it actually sounds, or there might be a bunch of things. Technicality might be important. It might not be for some people, or I guess you could just call that complexity or something. And some people might like it simple or whatever. But somewhere down the list, there is actually the aesthetics of it, and I think that probably their favorite musical artists and their favorite music, the stuff that they think is great about it is probably not the aesthetics of it. It's probably not what the band looks like. It's probably not what the album art looks like. It's probably other stuff. And yet, it seems that the images that are associated with music do seem to have an influence on us. Dare say that it's not uncommon for someone to, when their first instance of interacting with an artist or an album is to see a picture of that thing, not to have heard it, is the first thing. A lot of music discovery might be from, Bandcamp or whatever, where the first thing you see is not the sound that you're hearing. It's And also if you're trawling through, the record store or in the good old days.
The first thing you're going to see is the album art.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that has to be something that influences what we end up picking to listen to, if that's all we have to choose from.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, are there instances that you can recall where a piece of album art or the image of the band or whatever has struck you as interesting and you gave it a shot and you're going, yeah, this is good? Or conversely, the other way around, where you saw something and didn't listen to it, but maybe ended up listening to it later and then go, wow, I was turned off by the imagery associated with this music, but now I actually like it? Or is there something you see in a band and you immediately go, well, I know that's probably not the kind of music that I listen to?
Well, a few examples. And the one that first came to mind when we talk about sometimes the first exposure to a band is what they look like.
Yep.
Or even you can read the name of the band.
Oh, yes.
I guess that has an influence too. Before you hear the band, you kind of make your own mind up, whether it be through a stereotype or a cliche. Bands that their name is like a sentence.
Yes.
Whatever, you kind of typecast that into is it for me? I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah.
And then you find it, and then you see a picture of them and they've all got short hair or whatever. And it's like, oh man.
Probably not.
Anyway, next. And then you hear it and it's like, and maybe way later, like you've just snoozed on it for a whole year or something like that. And it's like, wow, why?
Between the Buried and Me.
Why did I snooze on that band? Yeah, exactly.
Is that where you're going?
Yeah. So that was an example of a band that I'd snoozed on until I can't even remember why I heard it, or how I heard it, whether or not it was something that I heard someone else playing, or maybe like my brother said, oh man, have you checked out this band? I was like, no, why would I? He said, seriously, put it on. And I put it on. I was like, hot damn. Well, I've known about this band for years and I just,
Yeah.
And then you hear it and it's like...
Absolutely the same with me,
Yeah.
I had no idea.
That band.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I had no idea that that's what they would be like, and had certain, preconceptions because of, probably the band name is a big one.
Yeah.
When you fit it into the canonical set of band names of all the different bands that came out, or the era you might have discovered that seen their name alongside other ones. You put them in the same boat because now is Between the Buried and Me a bad name for a band? No, possibly not.
No.
And it's almost like the culture in which it sat contextualized it in such a way that actually turned off a bunch of prospective fans that would actually have been right into music.
And I think during their evolution, they have had somewhat stylistic, like any band, but a fairly broad stylistic evolution as well. So originally, even their early stuff had kind of, delved into like post-hardcore stuff. Like, I think they came out of a different scene to what they fit into now.
Yeah, sure, okay.
Where the fans might not have been turned off, like they might expect that a band would have a name like that.
Okay.
And an image like that. And then over the years, it's just evolved into, I don't know what you call it.
So it may have been a better representation as it sat culturally and contextually when it was first conceived. But the band went through a transformation that the name did not.
Yep. But I think it doesn't matter, right? In their case, I think they've got something going pretty special. Yeah. And it's not like they need to rebrand themselves to suit.
No, and the fact that, you would like some modern album of theirs doesn't require that they sounded a certain way in some album back in their catalogue.
Not at all, no.
It might have been important for their evolution, and so we accept that, all right, but the fact that they were one way once does not affect whether the music is good now or not.
Yeah.
That brings up another thing I thought of, is that bands do change their names, and I suppose that is because, I guess sometimes it might be because they don't like the name, but it also might be symbolic that they want to say that we've changed, so we're changing the name.
Yep.
And although you might not call the band name aesthetics per se, I think it certainly fits into that kind of category of
of course,
exterior to the music stuff that might influence it.
Yep.
And it also, that brings me to another thing that I've just thought of, is that the band logo. Now, I don't know.
Logos are an interesting thing.
Yeah, I'm not even sure when bands started having logos as opposed to just names. But now it's almost like you cannot have a band without having a unique logo.
Like a recognizable brand marking.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
There are bands that, I think it might have been Dream Theater actually, on one album they changed their band logo and then they changed right back to their old one. Now I don't know what the story of why they did that was, but it just goes to show, I think they might have taken that step, realized it was perhaps wrong, and then gone back to whatever traditional logo they had before.
Yeah.
Logo definitely is something that would be in the category of aesthetics, I would say, and especially
Absolutely.
about giving people an impression of what your music might be.
Yeah, like is your logo like a pile of sticks kind of thing? Well, if it is, it's definitely a black metal band.
Yes, there's a very good sign.
Or is it a thorny kind of logo with blood dripping off it? That's a different. You can expect to hear something different.
Yeah.
Or like old English text.
Yeah.
That's all like rusty and
the very sort of curvy 70s thing. Now that turns up in modern metal bands today as well.
Yeah.
Usually you're like, well, maybe sludge of some kind or doom of, A girl I worked with, I was, obviously as we got to know each other, she was talking to me about metal and, and I would go through Bandcamp, the first couple of pages, and I would be like, what genre do you reckon this band is from the album art and the logo?
Yep.
And it was a good opportunity to sort of teach her about the subculture that I'm in. Now, I wasn't always 100% on getting those right, but I could see that I was much better at it, which means that there is something to say for that impression.
Yeah.
But you sometimes get thrown a curveball, like a sci-fi looking album art with sleek, straight lined logo, and it turns out to be black metal. I was thrown that curveball once, but it's not often that it turns out like that.
You expected it to be some like genty,
yes, or possibly some kind of powery prog type thing as well, depending. And I can think of when there's that much music out there, it is sometimes, I wouldn't say something like that, necessary to make snap judgments about a band based on their aesthetics, so that you can choose which thing to give your time to, even just the first few seconds to work out what you want to listen to. When you're in a band, you're a creative and you want to send a certain signal, or what's important? Is it important to get this right, do you think?
It's important in a way that you want to give the right preconceptions. And like we did a whole episode on preconceptions, but this is part of it, right? And it's it ties in with where you designate a subgenre, or a subgenre is designated to your music.
Yep.
All it is, take away all the elitism and gatekeeping for a second. It is just a way to explain what you're about to hear.
The problem that might arise here is that if you are fitting your aesthetic into a set boundary, does that mean that you're in danger of getting lost in the noise of all the other things that are in that genre?
Perhaps. I mean, it's still, while it's important to, set that standard or that expectation, exactly what you said, like don't get lost in it, don't get obscured by the masses of everyone else doing the same thing. Like if you can be unique,
but give correct expectations,
that's
based
right,
on things that people already know about what you're putting on the album art or whatever.
So there's another example where a band has got a silly name, but the album art is correct to what the the record sounds like.
Right.
A band called Slice the Cake. If I told you there's a band called Slice the Cake, what does it sound like to you?
It doesn't sound particularly metal at all, really.
No, like it's just like party music.
Yeah.
Or I don't know.
Yeah, could be anything.
A whole different range of different ways you can sing Happy Birthday. I don't know.
Yes. Okay.
Are you aware of Slice the Cake as an example?
Not. It's in the periphery of my mental network there.
Yeah.
No,
it's
really.
not periphery. But anyway, have a look, and then when you post this video, chuck it in the comments for the viewers to suss out.
Okay.
Slice the Cake is like a progressive deathcore band.
Okay.
And it's absolutely phenomenal. Like, and I wholeheartedly mean that.
They
have an album called Odyssey to the West, and it's just cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And do you think it was appropriate for them to name their band Slice the Cake?
No, I don't know why. I mean, I haven't looked into it, but why would you call your band Slice the Cake?
Is it one of those things where you're deliberately trying to go against type in order to generate buzz in a way?
Maybe. And I'll tell you this, it's worked. If that's what they tried to do, is like, let's come up with a band name so ridiculous that people will just remember who we are just because of that.
I know that there's a definite example of that exact thing, which seems to be deliberate. I think they're called Second Son, well, basically straight up and down traditional black metal. Right. But the album art is just the one-man band dude in the band, a selfie from his holiday. He looks like a normal dude. He's just wearing sunnies. He's at just a nice place near the ocean or whatever. It's just, and he's just smiling, and he's just got this selfie, and that's it. And then the band logo up the top, and that's it. And
what does the band logo look like? Does it look like traditional black metal?
Not super traditional, but it looks metal. It looks metal for sure. So you definitely know it's a metal band. When
like the Mayhem logo, maybe.
maybe something like that. A little straighter.
Yeah.
Maybe, but so legible enough. Right. But yes, this album I think was divisive among black metal people because
of the cover art.
Yes, I think so.
Idiots.
Well, I think it because the album art represented perhaps a certain attitude towards black metal traditionalism. It wasn't just, I guess, the album art. It was to say, hey, your traditions suck or something. Look at this. I'm playing it up,
Look at all you idiots lost in the forest taking cool band photos in corpse paint. I'm having fun at the beach with my wife or whatever.
I think maybe the music was good and it was well received as far as black metal goes, which probably really helped. Because
if you're going to take the piss, at least have the chops to back it up.
Yes. So again, so that seems like it was probably a deliberate thing. And I think that was probably one of those places where, because black metal, the aesthetics of black metal, this old photocopy, high contrast, whatever. Obviously, that was done at the beginning to kind of say, we don't care about aesthetics, right? And
that in itself is an aesthetic.
It became an aesthetic, And so when this guy comes along and just posts a smiling selfie for his album art on a black metal, it's like he's recaptured the spirit of black metal by doing the exact opposite of what black metal is doing. The metagame
Full
here.
circle.
Yeah, the metagame here of album art aesthetics is it's almost like advertising. It's almost like you've got to be correct in what you're doing, but also unique to find the fine line between what's good and what's unique and what works and what doesn't. It's a challenging thing. It's probably a secondary concern most of the time for bands as they try to make their music the best that they can, I imagine. But for a band, when they have to do a thing like this, they have to make some album art, of course they're going to care a lot about it.
Well, you'd hope so, yeah.
Yeah, and so they do have to go through that process. Evocatus actually got their art made, right?
Yes.
It's a custom job, okay?
For Tartarus, yes.
Yes. Were you part of the process of the creative input for that and how it came together? Or now, how much of it did you give to the artist and how much was just kind of his input?
Well, and we had worked with this guy before. I say that loosely. For Mortem, we purchased something from his catalogue that we were browsing.
Okay.
And that was quite an easy choice. So he had a catalogue of his stuff for sale that we were just flipping through. And like next. That one. That's the one. Righto, put that aside for a second.
Okay.
Keep looking through. Yeah, no,
Shortlist.
Go back to that one. That's the best one.
Yeah.
How much for this thing? We bought that thing, had it for Mortem. That was great. Second record came round. We sort of had we had this idea that we wanted to commission something for him to do specifically for Tartarus. But, nonetheless, we had a quick flip through his current available works and there was nothing quite right. That being said, when you're flipping through artworks like that, and it's not just for Pierre and his work, but for lots of different artists where you're flipping through, I end up following a bunch of different artists on, Facebook or whatever, and they post and stuff every day. I think to myself, I know these are just pictures, right? Artworks, but I look at each of those pictures and go, I want to listen to that album. I want to listen to that album. And I know what those albums sound like because I have a preconception, like you said, when you were flipping through. And these are just paintings or whatever, And I think to myself, oh man, that album sounds cool. Or that's a Devin Townsend album, or, that's a Slayer album, or whatever it is. So that was really cool. But anyway, there was nothing that jumped out us that was already, made.
Yeah.
So we already had the idea that we wanted to commission something. So we talked to him about that, and he sort of gave us like a ballpark of what he can do for us. And then we gave him some guidelines, basically. Mm-hmm. We already liked his style, so that wasn't going to change.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He's got a certain style. Artists have a certain style,
Don't go to a guy and then ask them not to do the thing they do.
Exactly, yeah. I don't want him to paint like, to Simpsonize the band or whatever. That's not what we're here for. So we like his style. We told him about the record. We told him about the themes of the record. We punched all the lyrics to him.
Okay.
I think we even had some of the music done and we sent him some songs.
Yeah.
The songs with the lyrics and kind of a basic idea of what we wanted on the cover.
Yeah, okay.
And he came back with I think even on the first draft, we were like, yes, that's exactly what we were talking about.
Okay, yeah.
And so he built on that.
All right.
Yeah.
He understood the assignment.
And I've got, I don't know if you're watching, Pierre, but you get the job again next time if you'll still have us.
With the guidance you gave him, there's quite, throughout the album artwork and the packaging and everything, there's quite a strong color theme, for example.
Yeah.
Was that your input, or was that kind of, once you put the art together, you kind of make the rest of the album?
Yeah, I think so.
Around that
and
idea.
color is an important thing as an overall feel for a record, even you're just looking at it, right? But it's easy to differentiate between records by the overall color. It'd be no good having each album looking the same as the last.
No, sure.
Of course, depending on the aesthetic you're going for. Yeah. If it's going to be super lo-fi, photocopied.
Yes, yeah. There's not much, not as much variety.
Not as much room to move. But so there was a lot more blue and stuff on the cover. Yeah, it still had a pretty major orange thing going on with all the the fire and the lava and
colours,
where the first record just had just that. It was just basically orange, brown, burnt colors.
Mm. Yeah, when I think about it, not so much anymore, maybe, but certainly when I was, a youngster and listening to lots of music, certain albums that I listened to over and over again took on a color theme in my mind. When I heard that album, instantly,
you can hear purple.
Yeah, instantly that color came to mind. Oh, you say purple. There are bands that name their album a color, like Baroness.
Baroness, they've got just all different colored albums.
Yeah, and I
guess...
don't
even bother naming them anything else. It's just the purple album.
Yeah. And that, I guess that serves the purpose of making it easily identifiable which album you're talking about there. Yeah, I don't know. Do they think people associate colors so strongly that you could name the album whatever, people are going to forget the name, but if you've got a strong color theme, they're going to more likely to remember it or something like that. There's probably a bunch of psychology here that I know nothing about when it comes to color and imagery and how that meshes with music and makes connections in our brain. Perhaps no one, properly understands it. It'd be very interesting to see that. Let's talk about a bit about the band's image as human people.
What the people look like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, obviously, there's not a lot of control you can have over what a person looks like, right? I mean, there's some accessory features you can change. You could shave off the eyebrows, but
depends what surgeons you know.
But I do remember a band. I mean, I don't remember the band because I don't think I ever heard the music, but I know that they got a little bit of notoriety because they were in their advertising for musicians that they wanted to join the band. A requirement was that they were a certain level of attractiveness, right?
Really?
Yeah. So there was someone out there whose idea was to be a very attractive set of band members. So that was kind of their thing. So there is some control, I guess, in what a person looks like. But the outside of that, okay, you've got clothes and you've got hair and you've got all these things. Now, you've mentioned that when you see a group of band members standing next to each other, you can make judgments about what genre they might be in based on the way they look. And that's not simply that they're all wearing band T-shirts with the names of bands that are in certain genres, all right? That's one way
give you
of
a preconception,
cheating, yes. Okay, but outside of that, I'm guessing this is just more or less that a subculture arises around subgenres, and so certain ways of dressing and grooming, let's say, pops up around it. If you've got a band, you're in a band, and you have the choice to coordinate in some way with the band members, do you? Should you? Is it important? Is it important to stand out? Is that one of the important ways that we can set expectations? What advice would you give if you've been involved in that sort of thing?
Okay.
Or what have you done as part of your, musician's journey?
My band definitely has that going on for now with a set or decided upon theme, where we all have a stage wear, I guess, that was tailored, commissioned, if you will. But it wasn't always like that. That was sort of like in the middle of our, coming up to where we are now. Image that kind of came about coinciding with the Tartarus album.
Yep.
When we were playing shows before, we weren't ready for that yet. We hadn't decided on an image. Like, sure, our image was like we're all wearing jeans. Yeah. We're all wearing some band T-shirt that we like.
Yep.
We've all got long hair.
Yep.
And, half of us have beards.
Yeah. I guess because you're part of that subculture, you look, it's almost like if you weren't in the band, you might still look like that anyway, right? And
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So, and people that aren't in bands that look like that.
Yes.
Okay. So that wasn't it wasn't decided upon.
No.
But at some point you've gone, all right, we want to send a certain signal or we want to look a certain way. What point do you think that you did decide that was a good idea? Was it like you're getting more serious about...
Yeah, and that coincided with some advice that we got from some other musicians that we know that are, much more well-versed in, playing live and touring and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And they were talking about us and our own success and where to next and whatever. And they said, you need to decide on an image because that's important to people in terms of aesthetics and having something that you can remember a band by.
Sure.
Those guys on the stage that all, dressed up like Romans or Vikings or some sort of other ancient warrior type get up, but they're swinging guitars instead of axes, you know. So that wasn't the advice that was given to us at the time. The advice was like pick a look and dive into it. Yep. So that's basically what we did. And
were there other looks that you played with the idea of going down?
No.
We had a solid idea.
We pretty much went straight for the first idea we had, and I mean, it's good. It's been good for our, Tartarus run. I'd like to think that with our next record, which we're well and truly in the middle of putting together now, that we might change it slightly.
Okay.
We've been running it for 3, maybe 4 years.
Yep.
Unfortunately, half of that was all through COVID and the weird times where you couldn't play a lot of shows. But I think people are familiar with us now for that look, that features in the photos that are online and stuff like that. So people can see what we look like and what our album art looks like before they've heard us. So hopefully that's sort of painting that preconception.
Yep.
And then they get to hear us and hopefully it works out for what they expected to hear, Okay.
So even if you were going to change in the future, it's not like you'd have a huge departure from this current aesthetic.
It's not, we're not going to go out and all get Adidas tracksuits, for example.
So yeah, you found a look, and I guess because you wouldn't do that because it would destroy the sort of goodwill that you've built up with the image that you have, the sort of recognizability, as it were.
Is that a word?
There was a word I was searching for, but I just went with...
That'll do.
Yeah. The point is, you're recognizable in this certain way. To change would make it, make it new and novel. But to change too much would be to abandon too much of what you've built up already. I think of, certain bands like, I don't know, the Beatles or something that change their aesthetic almost every album, and sometimes wildly. They're just, polite-looking, teen boys at the beginning, and then they're, Sergeant Pepper's by the end of it, and then a bunch of random hippies at Abbey Road or whatever. Actually, Abbey Road is interesting because probably all 4 of the members have almost got a different aesthetic on that front cover,
To each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One has suit, someone's barefoot, And I mean, as I understand it, they were pretty kind of divided on the way out on that album. So it might be representative of that, but I'm sure not.
Of their relationship with each other.
Yeah. That's one of those strange albums where they had a really strong, cohesive sound, but things behind the scenes weren't so...
Not so cohesive,
Yeah. But I guess it's different times nowadays.
Man, there's one band that has like a really important aesthetic that they've sort of built on for 20 years, and that would be Slipknot.
Yep.
And they have had an evolution, but it's always sort of stayed the same sort of theme. At first they were all wearing masks.
Yep.
And then they had their big break and they're all wearing like red jumpsuits.
Yep.
And they had these recognizable masks. And over the years, or record to record, all of their masks changed ever so slightly, but you could always recognize who was who.
Oh, because
from one record to the next.
Still a clown or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. So
they found a way to evolve and yet stay the same in some ways.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Still instantly recognizable.
Recognizable.
You never mistook them for Mushroom Head or...
No. So, except for maybe like the very early days, like pre-breakout.
Perhaps before they had settled in on their image.
They were very similar to the point where, that's when all the copying crap started, accusations of like, oh, they copied us. And it's like, no, we didn't. You copied us, blah, blah, blah. So you can go online and read about that. It's pretty dumb.
Sure.
But they had very basic masks back then, and they were very similar to each other. They both had a clown, they both had a pig, they both blah, blah, blah,
okay.
They eventually each settled into their own groove and went their separate ways, even though they were both part of like the nu metal, they had some hip hop elements and blah, 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 loosely. But
I never heard a Slipknot song. I would have no idea. Not a one.
You've never heard Slipknot?
I've never heard them before.
No. Oh my God.
I understand that they were a nu metal band and that they looked the way they did. I think I've heard a Stone Sour song, and I understand that's got Corey Taylor in it, maybe even some other Slipknot members.
Yeah, Jim Root as well, the guitarist.
But I've never heard an actual Slipknot song before.
It's different to Slipknot.
Stone Sour is.
Yeah.
I got the impression Stone Sour was a bit more traditional rock and roll or something.
Yeah, compared to Slipknot. Slipknot are angry.
Yeah.
Well, they were.
Like, I'd heard nu metal before, right? I understand the genre, right? But they're different from
Slipknot doesn't sound like Linkin Park either.
No, okay, all right.
Or Deftones.
No.
Hey, I'll show you one day.
Yeah,
it's going to be a journey.
One day, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think any band sounds like Deftones, do they?
I mean...
And then nu metalish moments, even then, I think they sound pretty unique. But I don't know. Maybe I only heard one of their albums. I don't know.
Nu metal for chicks.
Okay. Is that how it goes?
I like Deftones. Whatever.
I'm sure I listened to White Pony plenty of times.
Yeah.
Weird album. Has that got Maynard James Keenan on it?
Yeah, it sure does. It features pretty heavy in a song.
What a crossover.
Yeah.
Strange times. And I've heard a few Korn albums. Nu metal bands, they had a certain aesthetic, I suppose. are they still rocking that aesthetic? I don't know. I haven't seen what Korn actually look like these days. Because I know there's a couple of genres that have kind of, they stagnated or they disappeared and they had comebacks. Like hair metal bands still get around sometimes.
Yes, they do.
And they're kind of come back in a nostalgia wave ride. And I think maybe they still rock the classic looks as far as they can.
Oh, they sure do, yeah. The spandex and the fishnet and the huge hair and the lipstick and all that stuff. It still exists.
Yeah. So you can see there that the aesthetic is pretty still important in that regard, even after so many years. In fact, it might have been more important that they didn't change in those cases when they're writing nostalgia. And
for nostalgia's sake.
Now, some of the new metal bands might have grown up a little bit. Maybe their pants aren't so baggy. Maybe the chains aren't so big. Or
100%. And Deftones is a good example of that.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, they matured a lot over the years for the image. The sound, I mean, they were always, like we said, a unique sound, and they still are. But yeah, man, no one wears baggy pants anymore.
No.
I know I did. That was just a sign of the times, right?
Yeah. Some of the image that was going on in these bands was more just a broader cultural trend rather than a musical one. But there are very specific musical aesthetic clothes choice pairings that go together.
And like similar to music or riffs or whatever, it can become difficult to be original or unique.
Yep.
You know, something is always a copy of something else. And
of course.
especially when you're part of an existing subculture, someone just looks like the next guy, right? I mean, that can be said for the music that Evocatus plays as well. It's just, you know, watered down such and such or whatever, you know.
You can trace its similarities.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I always have this question in my mind for these podcasts, and then I'm never sure where they're going to go. And then 1,000 other questions arise in my mind because of what we talk about.
Where are we going to go? Where are we going today?
I remember in the old days, you used to buy magazines, and the magazines had pictures of bands in them. And you might find out about new music by there was ads in magazines, and they had pictures of a band and their album artwork or whatever.
Yep.
And that was supposed to entice you into listening to their music.
Yep.
And sometimes in those days, it was actually a struggle to find these bands and listen to them sometimes. But if you were motivated enough, based on what they looked like, then you might be influenced to do it. I'm pretty sure I checked out Keep of Kalessin just because I saw a picture of them in a thing, and they're like, wow, these looks like cool black metal guys, not like the normal black metal guys. You know, the
black metal guys with jobs.
The corpse paint wasn't so heavy, and you know, the armor wasn't so spiky, but it was still recognizably black metal. So I'm like, oh, they're cool.
Not full hipster black metal.
Yeah, not that.
Yeah.
I don't. When I discovered these guys, I'm not sure hipster black metal existed yet.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it has to work. It has to do something. But like the Luma Time, I don't feel like we have an image, and it's morphed a little bit over the years. You know, I've thought, you know, maybe I should play into the black metal part of it, you know, maybe that's the scene that we fit into, but I really struggled to work out what scene we fit into, so I haven't got an aesthetic that I'm strongly leaning towards, but I've got a better ideas for the future. So, well, I guess we'll work that out, but I don't think the music immediately revealed a aesthetic that I should have gone with, if you know what I mean.
No, not especially.
Which has made it a bit of a struggle.
I got some ideas.
Okay.
But they're only inspired by some other band that's not similar to. Just trying to think about what you guys sound like and what that might convert to. And if you could lend like stylistic cues from your artwork that you've had over the years. And I don't mean like just like be naked and wear like half a blanket or whatever.
Loincloth.
Yeah. Probably don't go for that. I reckon you could come up with something. Maybe similar to like Flesh God Apocalypse.
Oh, yeah.
Where you've got some like old-timey formal clothes that are all, you know, busted up.
But yeah, okay, yeah.
But then you could just be branded as like, oh, these guys are just Flesh God Apocalypse.
I mean, look, I'll think about it. You can throw me ideas if you want. Anyone can throw me ideas if you want.
Yeah, chuck it in the comments.
Baby back bitch, how you doing? Oh, Matt naked with the wax wings.
Let's play.
Yeah, okay, yes, of course. So we want to be inspired by the myths of old, and that basically just means being naked.
Yeah.
Being naked, flying.
Loincloth.
I can imagine if I was that naked, you know, waxed up and doing a crowd
stage
dive.
diving.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone would catch me. I'm like, why didn't he just fly, idiot?
Yeah, or you got too close to the sun. Well, those stage lights are hot, man.
Yes, those stage lights can be warm. So there's a guy, Christian Kohler. He's a producer, metal producer, and he had one video where he was talking about image, and he picked out Opeth, and he's like, these guys just look like normal dudes, right? No image. Sometimes a band can get by just by looking like normal dudes. They're just wearing jeans and t-shirt, and and so sometimes it can work. But he's like, basically, I would never recommend it. And his, how you say, paragon of image for him was Rammstein, because I think he's German and so are they, and so that was his pick. And he was like, they've always gone to quite some lengths. Now I don't think Rammstein have a one solid image that they've gone with necessarily, but when you do see promotional photos of them, it's usually not just a bunch of guys standing there. They're usually all naked, or
they're definitely Rammstein in every picture.
Yeah. Well, how would you analyze that as a place to go? I don't really understand. Maybe it's just for them. It was just about being shocking or something, or to push the envelope on every occasion, and they got a reputation for it or something like that.
Yeah.
I think other bands that have very strong images, I would say Behemoth. Now they're a black metal band and they wear corpse paint, but they seem to obviously think a lot about the aesthetics, and their armor is changing over the years, and their aesthetic, and their last set of album photo shoots is them on horseback with torches and so on. And it just seems that some quite big bands, I would say, popular bands, do have strong ideas about the images that they want to project.
Yeah.
But it's not 100% necessary, as there are bands that do not have strong images and yet are very popular.
Yep.
But yeah, I wonder, do you think Opeth would have been more popular if they had a stronger image? It seems like no. It seems like almost,
I don't think so. Like, what could they have done?
Yeah.
What would be appropriate for that kind of band?
No, I don't know.
Outside of the image that they give themselves now, which is just like 70s prog nerds.
Yes, 70s prog.
They look like 70s prog nerds now.
Yes. I do recall now that there were a series of maybe a tour's worth of photo shoots and stuff where Mikhail was wearing like a top pointy wizard hat. Do you remember those photos?
I remember the hat times.
Yeah. So I mean, there was something going on there. I don't know what exactly it was. That was their strong image for their careers. They picked a pointy hat at one stage.
I remember a gig. He wore a hat to a gig one time.
Yeah. Okay, actually wore
it. Was
it
the
on
last
stage.
time I saw him. I don't think it was pointy though. It was more like a round top on it. Still a big brim.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe a big buckle on it or something. Yeah.
A pilgrim or just 70s or... Anyway, just... okay. So, yeah, I mean, there's a little slice of imagery there, but then again, Opeth do have strong images in other places like album art, for example.
Yes.
And although they don't have a defining aesthetic, they certainly have a strong logo aesthetic there.
Oh, yes, very much so.
Certainly in high school, I would have spent time doodling that thing on my textbooks and so on. Yeah, it's funny now that I think about it, how much image influences all these things, even though you'd swear up and down that it's not I don't know about the least important, but it's certainly not, as far as music is concerned, image is not up the top. And yet it gets influenced all the way sort of to every level of your... that's
right.
Your...
like how
discovery
copied is the Metallica logo. Oh man, that thing gets that pops up in pop culture all the time.
Yes, yeah.
With someone ripping it off, one of the many things that Lars probably let slide without sending a cease and desist.
Yes, there's too many people to send that one out to. I suppose.
Exactly.
It just needs to take on small fry like Napster.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are bands these days that hide their faces. We talked about masked guys before. But it was also the case that, at least allegedly, the black metal corpse paint aesthetic was about anonymity. And there are bands that are better at anonymity these days than those days because they're not just
really
got makeup.
Obscure masks now in bands like, Portal. Have you seen a picture of those guys?
Yes.
And Batushka.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes,
similar thing, just like a huge, ridiculous headpiece.
Yes, yeah.
Like old mate is dressed as a clock. I don't know.
I saw Portal the first time in, I think, Metal for the Brain, like way back in the early 2000s. And I was not ready.
Not ready for that.
Yeah. But I mean, it blew my mind.
Sure.
But I was like, I don't
get it.
No, well, it was like, Portal's a weird band. Like, I've seen people arguing on the internet about whether they're technical or not, and some guys like, these guys, what a technical band? They're not technical at all. And I'm just like, you can't hear how technical they are in their music because they're so technical. It sounds like it's mush, but to see it, I was just like, the fretwork and so on, I was just like blown away by what I couldn't hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
looks like it's supposed to sound good.
MGLA, just, I'm not sure if that's an actual word you can pronounce, but they're just basically socks on the head band. There's a couple of those going around. Gua, have they always looked like that? I mean, there's no time that I remember they haven't looked like that.
No, I don't think so. Just big, ridiculous suits.
Ghost is a band that doesn't sound like the way they look, I would say, and I think that's well reported, but incredibly popular. And very strong image. Very strong image.
Yeah.
Although their image has changed a bit, this is one that they've gone from the very first release. Strong image. Look at us. This is what we look like.
Yes.
Band, So I think he must have.
Tobias.
Tobias. Yeah. Must have very much recognized that image is going to be an important part.
Yeah, very smart guy.
No doubt.
For that. Yep.
Yeah.
Especially with the anonymity of the rest of his band members. Because his band members chop and change all the time and everyone's guessing who's who.
Yes, yeah. I have seen some of that speculation going around. I know that Frederick from Opeth got a credit on the latest album.
Ah, really?
So he's not a nameless ghoul, he's a named guest.
A named guest, yeah.
But outside of that, yes, lots of anonymity still going around.
I wonder you could tell if he walked out on stage with that nameless ghoul, like mask on, but all his hair at the side.
Might be a giveaway.
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
Okay, we should probably talk about the song we were talking about.
Yeah.
There's no particular reason I wanted to talk about aesthetics with this song in particular. It was just a topic that I wanted to talk about. But the age of expansionism, we're back into original territory here. But this was a song that I wanted to have a focus on the doom end of the spectrum. So it's one of those songs where, and I think the one of the ways that Grand Falls Crass, this is different from Nihil Reich in a lot of ways, is that it starts off a certain way, gets lost, then remembers, comes back in the middle somewhere, might get lost again, comes back, whatever. So there's a definite point in the middle there where you definitely feel it. Remember, there's like a 8-bar pick slide, and then it goes back into doom. Right? Oh yeah. But the part before that is one of the things I wanted to do on this song was, instead of feeling like guitar solos, I wanted all those little spots where there's no vocals to feel like just instrumental passages, right? Actually, near the very beginning of the song is one of the parts I'm most proud of as a transition. And then it comes in with that sort of guitar solo instrumental section. I think that is really nice because it's got a very discordant, jarring chord, but it resolves into a nice harmonious chord, and the lead guitar comes up, and the vocal harmonies all come together. And of all the transitions on the album, it's not the most cleverest or underhanded or whatever, but it just works. It works for me. That section, that little guitar solo there is came into the song late in the piece, because there was a section there before that I just had to work on and it wasn't working out. I'm not sure what I tried to do there, but it's lost. Maybe I'll find an old demo of that, maybe I won't. But after the sort of second bout of lyrical stuff, there's a sort of an extended instrumental section where the left and right lead guitars are playing off each other, and then we go into that really long pick scrape, and the bass is just chugging along underneath. That entire thing was like a gothic doom originally, with violins and very My Dying Bride.
Oh wow!
And this is just one of the locations on the album where I wanted to put that, I felt doomy, and I felt like I wanted to put gothic doom in there, and but I just couldn't get it to gel with the rest of with the rest of the music, and so I decided to go another way.
You tried it.
Yeah,
it was.
There's a version of it, probably lost, but maybe in a hard drive somewhere, where there's a gothic doom section there. Sometimes I realize early enough that it's not working, and I delete it before I write the next part. But I don't know if this was one of those or not. There's a part on Nihil Reich, I think it might be Greed of Lesser Men, maybe, where there's quite a doomy riff. I couldn't sing it to you now, but someone remarked that it was the heaviest riff on the album, and I wanted to. I think it's a.
Yep.
I think that's it.
I think I remember reading that too.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to have our heaviest riff on this album. Now, I don't think it necessarily is, but after that very, very long pick scrape, there's a very solid Doom riff, I think. And it's certainly my attempt at doing a similar thing, having a very strong Doom heavy thing. And I think that really, really long pick scrape was my written way of trying to accentuate how we're going to go into a big Doom riff with lots of power and strength and so on. And I think it worked moderately well. Yeah, I don't know if it is the heaviest riff on the album.
Yeah, definitely when those vocals come in, that's a really heavy part.
Yeah.
After that pick scrape.
I think it still gets the effect that I was going for.
Yeah.
And again, that is a part where it remembers that it's a Doom song again and becomes Doom again. Shortly thereafter, there's a guitar solo that James does, from Blade of Horus and Hysterectomy fame. I think if you listen to the rhythm guitars, they're really quite interesting. It's weird, and there's lots of stuff going on, and it changes a lot. I think I gave James quite a lot of work to do really there. Yeah. Sometimes for a guitar solo, you just play the 4 chords of the chorus and just let the guitar go for it. Yep. But this time, with my intent to have not necessarily solos, but instrumental sections, I wrote this part because I didn't know what the solo was that was going to go over it. It's more like, that's not my problem. I'll write this as difficult to get a solo over as possible.
Yep.
And it'll almost force them to make something interesting. You can't just settle down into your blues scale noodling if the music's constantly changing.
Yep.
But I think I did a good job. And then there's a nice little run into the final part of the song, which is this big choir section of which, of course, you were involved in.
Yep.
At the very, very end of the song, after the music has finished, there's a bunch of weird noises. Right? Yeah. Any theories on what's going on there?
I didn't think too much about it other than that it's just the next or the sort of the precursor to the next song.
Yeah, transition.
And it's, in the absence of sticking it on the start of the next track, so that the next track is saved from all that, crap.
Yeah.
In terms of listening to the album in its entirety.
Yeah, or releasing that song as a single. Or
releasing the next song as a single without that stuff. You just bung it on the end of the last song, in this case, this song.
Yes, that is definitely
no other thought than that.
Smart way to do it. So, it wasn't totally just random in that case.
What is it?
What is it? So, now remember how I said that I... in the same way that Stanley Kubrick makes uniquely filmic movies and Hideo Kojima makes uniquely video games. I wanted to do some uniquely metal album type metal things on our album. This is one of those locations. And what's going on there is, I think it's on the left side, is some ambient sounds, some whispering, which are, I'm saying some clues. And on the right-hand side is an electronic signal. And this electronic signal can actually be read by certain electronic devices, and it'll transmit a code, basically give you something, a secret, an Easter egg, as it were.
Does it just dial up?
No, but the important thing here is, I know that bands have done promotional things where they give their fans the job of decoding something or whatever, or discovering something, or I know that topical that Creed once printed some coordinates or something in one of their album artworks secretly, and the idea was that people were going to have to find this spot and dig a hole and to find a phone or something. I can't remember what it ended up actually being, or whether they ever ended up going through with it.
Just an address to Scott Stapp's house. Please come and be my friend. Haven't got any friends.
Yeah, something like that. He's just his mobile phone number.
Yeah.
Message back.
Please, someone call me, please. I'm lonely. Poor fella.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's that. And now that I think about it, there was there's a guy who wrote a puzzle book that was puzzles set in the real world, and that he actually went out into these cities across America and hid boxes with messages in them and gems in them.
Treasure hunt.
Yeah, and you could buy the book, and it had 12 puzzles in it. And the puzzles were like a small amount of text and a very cryptic looking collage picture that he'd painted with symbols on it. That and a couple of them have been solved, but many of them have not. And this guy has since died, and it will never know. And so it's been a bit of an internet quest for people who are fans of this book to try and figure out where these things are, even though the ravages of time might have changed the location of trees and things that they've been. Right. So it's been a bit of a fun thing for that. So these kinds of things inspired me to put this kind of code in, but not so that people could go looking for it. If you recall, one of the things that I wanted to make sure sort of gets embodied in the music is the idea that something's going to come along, it's going to disappear, it's never going to come back. We need to learn how to roll with life, move on. Things will be unresolved. Nothing is necessarily in real life tied up into a bow and has poetic endings like it does in films and so on like this. So I wanted to actually put something in the album that is a secret that only I know, and I am absolutely happy to go to the grave with it without telling anyone.
You've told me half the story. And we've got to figure it out now.
Well, I don't think anyone will. Okay. And I don't think the people that would be mildly interested in doing so would have the resources and time to be able to do so. So I'm not worried that it's ever going to be resolved. And I think whenever anyone puts on my album that now knows this, they're going to hear something and they're going to go, this is a secret that's going to go to the grave with someone. It'll never be resolved. It'll never be discovered what it is. It'll never be realized where it's gone. It's just going to have to be something that you're going to have to let go of. It's an instance of something where we can sort of have a meta version of the message of the music in a separate form that actually works on the album. And I've tested it. I've tested the code, and I know that it works. I suppose it's possible that someone might randomly pick it up, but I think it would be so unlikely.
I've solved it.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Already. It is random noise, and you just made all that up. Because to sell more records.
That's fine. That would be fine if that were true.
If it works, it's fine. You'll never know if you don't buy the record. When the physicals come out, there is a set of coordinates where you can...
Scott Stapp's house.
Yeah, pretty much. He has the answers. You ask him.
Yep, old man Scott, bearded in his rocking chair.
Yeah, with arms wide open.
Moving on. All right, lyrics on this one. The lyrics on Age of Expansionism talk about science and stuff. Now, I've talked a little bit about scientific stuff in Nihil Reich somewhere.
Yeah.
But, there's this whole area of... I wouldn't call it an area of science. I'd call it an area of philosophy, but it's called the philosophy of science.
Right.
And it's basically where... a little bit of history on philosophy. I think... although philosophy has had a spotted history, I think when kind of organized religion was very dominant culturally, that those philosophers that were around at that time were almost hired by the church to do philosophy in favor of the religion, right? And so...
hype men.
Yeah. Yes, hype men, yes. Yeah. I mean, I think the philosophers called it the handmaiden. So religion's handmaiden or something like that.
Yep.
The philosophy was the handmaiden of religion, something along those lines. But of course, in more recent times, philosophy has almost recovered its more noble task of being critical of lots of things or everything or whatever, just being kind of, I think, tracing it back to Socrates, who claimed he was the gadfly, the fly that lands on the horse's eye, and just to annoy it, to keep it awake. Yep. He saw himself as poking and prodding at the institutions to keep them alert, but make them better. Unlike a horse that just swats away a gadfly, though, the Greeks executed Socrates. So it may not have worked out totally for him. But, in that tradition, philosophy comes along and it attempts to, critique basically everything or the institutions or the status quo or whatever it is. And the philosophy of science comes along to do that same thing to science. And I actually think that that's a important role. But there are also, the problem with this is that there are also people who are criticizing science who are quacks and pseudoscientists.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to, as much as I want to do things like criticize science for the betterment of it, I don't want to be on the same side of the tug of war. Where,
misbranded as a quack.
Well, yeah.
Well, not even, but
I don't want to be a quack, right? Yeah.
On the wrong side of the tug of war is a good analogy.
That's right. I'm just like, yes, all right, back to the middle of reasonableness. And they're like, yes, to quackery. I'm like, no. That's
not what I meant, yeah.
Why no, you're not helping me, all right. Yeah, so I do think that it is important to criticize even those institutions that we think are important or like or whatever. But I want to be clear that there are also people criticizing it that are not on the level, and that I don't think that they'd agree with what I'm saying here. But I think it's certainly possible that they can use philosophy of science as ammunition to be critical of things that don't deserve it. And I think a lot of the time I see this when a quackery type person will criticize mainstream whatever, and then it always seems to be the case that they're selling a book about how to cure cancer with grass,
lemon juice.
So there's a lot of financial conflict of interest involved in that side of things. What's going on over here? Hang on. Favorite lyric: "If we all believe, then we don't need the truth." Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It does have a context there, and it is criticizing that idea. So yeah, that's an example of one of the critiques of from the philosophy of science is the idea that consensus has shifted over time, right?
Yes.
So even though, but it's all right to criticize that notion, but it's also the way that quacks would go. All right, whatever the consensus is, I will always criticize it, or you can do away with it. Even sometimes the consensus might be right, sometimes it might be wrong. You have ways to deal with that. I'd say most of the time it is a good, worthwhile idea to go along with what consensus is saying. But no, it's not always the case. I think it's just that some people swing too far on the pendulum, as it were, and usually they do so because they have certain, maybe not sinister, but selfish perhaps motivations.
Yep.
Right. So even though that's probably more contextual to what I'm talking about in the song itself is about, now I think I said somewhere that it's about, it's in the song. It mentions scientism, right?
Yes.
Now scientism, I think, depending on how you define it, now that's slightly, people define it different ways. It can look better or worse. There are some people who will claim that scientism just means the belief that science is the only good way to truth, right?
Yep.
Not excluding, wild claims to truth. There's still reason to critique that idea. But the other way of looking at scientism, and the one that I'm mainly focused on in this song, is the idea that the basically expanding science beyond where it actually sits. They proclaim its powers go further than it does, and they perhaps, there's this idea in philosophy of the God of the gaps, where every time a religious person that used to attribute some phenomenon to God discovers a scientific reason for it, they'll go, okay, yeah, that's whatever this is, but God still explains the other stuff that we don't understand over here. And the idea is that those gaps are getting smaller and smaller.
Yes.
But it is also very possible that this kind of is a double-edged sword and goes against science as well, because there are people who would like to think that science will one day answer all the questions that we have about the universe, as it were. But science itself works on, I guess, trends over time, and I don't think there's any trend in science that says that science will be able to accommodate all the mysteries that we have, or that humans are capable of understanding all the mysteries in the universe or something. So I guess the simple way would be to say the people that want to treat science like a dogma, like an unquestionable religion of its own, that for me goes too far and needs some critiquing. And that's what the song is aiming at. Now, this is not because I want to sell you a book on curing cancer with lemonade. There's a lot of reasons why you might want to critique science, and it's not just selling books. I guess there's a lot of conspiracies and all this stuff, and there's a lot of reasons. I guess what I want to say here is I don't want to necessarily take down science as an institution, and that I still think it has utility and it might be our best tool for finding truth in the universe, whatever. Yeah. I'm not trying to undermine it entirely, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't critique these things. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't come up with reasons to understand its limits, let's say. That's what the song's about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe that's pretty self-explanatory. I think the only confusion might be that maybe I'm trying to undermine science and sneak some sneaky idea, smuggle something in.
Critique is a healthy thing in anything, when it's done properly.
Yeah, in good faith, I would say.
In good faith
is the right expression there.
So to make it better.
But yeah, the more I study the philosophy of science, the more confused I get and the more critiques we build up of everything. And it's very, very hard to keep up with everything. But if anything, it just teaches you to have an open mind, I suppose.
So does the next record have like a critique of that song's ideas?
I mean, not
like
yet.
Like a rebuttal?
Not yet. Again, that's one of the things. I think none of my songs should be taken as a solid point of view necessarily.
The lyrics are not important.
That's right. It's a thought experiment more than it is
Do you think
preaching.
Something as a challenging subject in, critiquing the scientific philosophy in there, that someone listening to the songs and commenting on YouTube, that you're going to trick that person into enjoying the whole album, and then they get to that song and it's like, what? No, you can't say that. I'm out. You've tricked me.
It's happened before. It could happen again, right? But I think maybe because most people, I imagine that most people who listen to our music listen to the album as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, most of them are too distracted by the music to listen to the lyrics. And
so
then,
you hope.
And then of the subset that are listening to the music, if they're really that intent on listening to it, they're going to see quite a diverse range of ideas that don't necessarily mesh and gel together. And they'll see that it's more of a thought experiment than someone preaching anything in particular. Keep questioning until you get as close as you can at a fairly good explanation for things, then revisit it later when there aren't any easier questions you can ask. That's a reasonable way of looking at it. I mean, that encapsulates the idea that it is a journey, right? It's not necessarily that you're going to finish.
It's much easier than that. You only question as far as to get an answer that roughly aligns with what you already had in mind, and then you don't need to keep looking.
Yeah, that's a great idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It works if you want to get a certain kind of thing.
That's right.
But I guess that kind of thinking is hopefully something that, if you're looking at my lyrics, is something that gets combated somehow.
Yes.
Because I don't think you'll get into my album and go, all right, I've listened to enough songs here to know that he's on my side. I'll hit pause here. And if you keep listening, you have to, right? You're listening to an album, and you're going to hear 2 or 3 songs, 4 songs, 5 songs. None of them are going to line up with what you think. It's a slippery slope. It'd be impossible to settle into that position, no matter what your position is, with the Loom of Times music. And I think that feels good. That feels good. Making people uncomfortable since 2016. Yeah. Again, philosophy is interesting to me. It is a place where I think I can, or have been inspired to write interesting things. But, to be honest, I haven't written nearly as many lyrics recently as I did in the old days. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because I've started writing a bit more regularly just for myself. Mm-hmm. And I think getting my thoughts out and stuff like that meant that they didn't build up until they got to critical mass and I had to splurge them on the page or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So I think going forwards, I might actually have to think about my lyrics, and they might actually come out differently because of that. I guess we'll see. I don't know. It just means, I'll have to change up the process somewhat. And hey, look, that's evolution.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, you had a way that you did it before. You've sort of
allowed to change.
Ridden that as far as you have, and it doesn't have to be like that forever.
Now that I think about it, you were talking about Evocatus having a strong idea for image for this last album.
Yes.
Now, perhaps outside of image or including image, do you have any ideas for strong ideas for change in any direction for Evocatus going forwards?
Or for imagery or,
not necessarily.
sonically?
Any way in which you can have a strong idea for something. Like I don't want to exclude the idea that it goes, yes, we're putting flamenco in every song this time. We feel very strongly about that. Sonically can be the same.
Yeah.
Can be that way.
I think some of the songwriting now is getting a little more technical.
Okay.
Whether or not that comes out, audibly or not, might just be something that someone who knows what's going on a fretboard can see or hear it. I mean, I know what I like. I can't play guitar. I can have a loose appreciation for, when I see someone playing guitar, I can sort of see what it's supposed to sound like.
Yeah. Now,
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Vocatus has always had like quite technical guitar solos and stuff.
Yeah.
But I do think I noticed on Tartarus that the guitar work in a more general sense has had some added layers of technicality and complexity to it.
Yep.
Certainly like Warriors of the Sea, because I know that I had to learn that song on
Played that song a bunch.
bass, I think it was actually.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously I had the tabs and I could look at them all and so on. Yeah, I definitely see that, what you're talking about. So yeah, there seems to be an evolution there from the album to album that I've seen there. So if you're telling me you're pushing that direction even further, okay, cool.
I think that's due to the influences of the music that we're listening to, outside of Vocatus as well. More and more technical stuff, more, tech death and other prog stuff.
There's a suggestion in the sentence you just said that you listen to music inside of a Vocatus. Does that mean like you get together and listen to music?
Oh, no,
or
I meant
like you don't listen to Vocatus?
Yeah. When we're not listening to a Vocatus, we're listening to, Obscura and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's a cool band.
But yeah, so there's that. Imagery wise, I'm not sure. I mean, that's up for discussion. Nothing really in concrete there other than just the idea that like, okay, this is probably getting to a point or an age where it can evolve to something else.
You look pretty good in a cape, I have to say.
I mean, we might go the wizard thing, sort of like adopt some sort of Tolkien sort of thing. Brad is a dwarf, so we can dress him up like Thorin Oakenshield.
Definitely got the beards for it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because all these different people have different influences. They have different sounds and they have different ideas, and it's not always easy to get everyone together to give a huge melting pot. Sometimes you need a leader. Or a
some kind of
a
board of directors.
Yes. And that's almost like a pragmatic thing, like somebody can sit down and just get some work done, and so you kind of let that happen.
Yeah.
But if you've got people in your band, there's going to be some influence here and there.
Yes.
Actually, we were talking about Ghost and Frederick Åkesson, is that how you say it?
Yes.
And I think he said in an interview that he didn't get a whole lot of creative input in that because they had strong ideas for what he was to do when he got in there, right?
Yep.
So he was a bit of a session musician. But down here on the ground where I'm not a session musician, no one pays me to go and play the guitar on their thing, but we get to influence each other and intermingle with each other. Even just sharing music with each other can send people off in all sorts of directions.
Yeah.
Right? Jimmy came over the other week with some prog metal records, and I listened to it, and man, I've been on a bit of a prog metal kick for the last little while.
Good.
And you sent me a link that I haven't listened to yet. But,
you will.
Yeah, it's in the list.
I can't remember which one it was. Oh, it was Luna's Call.
Yes. Yeah.
Luna's Call. Yep. Amazing. Check that out. Sports fans, go sort that out.
Yeah. Keep sharing music. I'm always interested to listen to, always interested to hear new music and what people are listening to, no matter how far afield from metal it is.
Slice the cake.
Slice the cake, which is metal, but
it sounds like rock.
Sounds like it's far from metal. Anyway, thanks everyone for hanging out. How you doing? Good?
Yeah.
Oh no, I haven't given that a go yet.
Oh, you haven't? Do you know what Insomnium sounds like?
No, but from the rest of that playlist, I'm guessing Melodeath. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty tasteful.
Yeah, okay.
Pretty smooth. They have an evolution of sound as well.
Okay.
Yeah, their new stuff is, different from the middle and old stuff. For the better or not, it's an evolution nonetheless.
Okay. I forget what album Jason posted in there, but I will check that out. But what would you say start early and go later, or is there a not necessarily?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah. Okay.
You'll figure it out, right?
Yeah.
You'll know what you like.
I mean, at this point in my life, I am probably pretty good at going backwards or forwards through a discography, if you know what I mean.
Okay, yep.
And still being able to appreciate
so long as you know, like if you're starting at the start or starting at the end, to work in either direction.
Yes.
Yeah, you can understand the evolution even if you are listening to it backwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And just because, let's say, the production gets cheaper as you go backwards, doesn't necessarily mean that I will appreciate it less.
Yeah.
But for that reason, I also often like to start at the beginning because I know production is not going to get in the way, if you know what I mean.
By rule of thumb, it should be getting better and better.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Unless it's black metal.
Well, sometimes I see this kind of annoying trend on Spotify where the release order by year sort of counts re-releases and it puts them in weird positions.
Oh man, that sucks. Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this is different than their latest record. What the heck am I listening to? And then I have to go and work it out.
Not about it either.
Yeah. So Spotify, sort it out. I think that's why whenever I'm like organizing my own collection, no matter if it's a re-release or not,
it goes where it was supposed to go.
Yeah, it goes where it was supposed to go. There's a few grey areas where there's re-recordings and so on that go on.
Yeah.
I know that one of the Aerion albums I have is not the original version of it, and it's not just the case it was a remaster. He re-recorded guitars.
He did the whole thing again. Yeah. So it sort of belongs in the last part of the shelf. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, where it...
Yeah.
It's an actual release date.
Yeah. I think it had the original one on the CD as well or something,
right.
So you can compare them. But
and everyone tell Matt to listen to Slipknot. Change your life, man.
I'm not sure I'm ready.
How did you get through high school without that?
I don't know. I think maybe I listened to enough nu metal and then moved on from nu metal without having... maybe when Slipknot was popular, the explosion of nu metal created so much nu metal that you could listen to a lot of nu metal without listening to Slipknot.
That's fair.
I've heard Mudvayne, a few times,
I would argue, and this is subjective, but Mudvayne is way more interesting, like sonically, than Slipknot.
Yeah. Okay.
Slipknot have a lot going on. There's like 9 of those guys on stage.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. There's lots.
Okay. So they got like a drummer and a percussion guy or something.
Yeah. I'd argue that you couldn't get all of the sound that they play, with 5 guys on stage. Nonetheless,
like the singer's got some cymbals strapped to his knees. And
pretty interesting stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a place to start with Slipknot then?
Yes. Start with the Breakout album, which is the self-titled 1999.
Because I feel like they have an album called Iowa, right?
Which is the next one.
Right, okay.
Yep. That is the angriest one.
Okay.
Yep. That is the objectively best record.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So, okay, you're asking me to commit to more than one Slipknot album.
Okay.
But that's okay. I think if it's worth, 2 albums, I guess, to get to the best one, that's not bad.
I just can't believe that you've never even heard, like you don't know what it sounds like. We loosely throw around the word nu metal, but like I said, it doesn't sound like Linkin Park or Deftones, man. It is not Korn. It's its own beast.
Okay, yeah. The only thing I can think of is maybe if it was on a soundtrack of a movie somewhere, I might have heard it, but I've never picked it up on Spotify. I don't think I've ever been in a car with someone who's listen to Slipknot. I think by the time people were recommending me music, it was gone,
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Okay, well, look, I've got some homework. Can't promise I'll get to it during the week.
Are you busy with your own music?
Well, I got that.
There's that.
And I'm editing this thing and everything.
Imagine you listen to Slipknot for the first time and you get so thoroughly stuck into it that you chuck out the next Loom EP to rewrite it all because you think, I know what I want now.
Imagine that.
It's going to have hip hop in it.
It's like we get to rehearsing the Grand False Chorus stuff, and I'm just like, maybe we could change this drum part up a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, and I've got these masks.
Yeah.
And these jumpsuits.
And Brad would just be like, no, I'm out.
I don't know with Brad. He's unpredictable. He might be like, I've got my own mask. I don't know.
Yeah. I've been waiting for this moment, just puts it on.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
All right, cool. Yes, all right.
Good chat.
Thanks again, Shieldsy. Until next time.
My pleasure.
Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Until next time, I'll see you on Friday for some jams.
Yeah.
And let me mentally prepare for next week's song. What was today? Age of Expansionism. Oh, the crux of our salvation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I got some things. I got some thoughts.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to hit stop and stop streaming, and I'll say goodbye, and then I'm going to have a little bit more crackers and cheese, and then I'll see you guys next week. So thanks, Jason, again. Thanks you. I'll see you next time. Cool. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
There you are.